Welcome to Make It Last, helping you keep your legal ducks in a row and your nest egg secure, with your host, Victor Medina, an estate planning and elder law attorney and certified financial planner.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Make It Last. Thank you for joining us for another episode. I am your host, Victor Medina. I am joined this morning by a strong cup of coffee and some mood lighting. I don't know why I like having the lights down low as I record these episodes, but for some reason, I do like the atmosphere that's created when we take off the office lights and we just put on something soothing to record the episode of Make It Last. In any event, we just gotten back from Thanksgiving, and while it was a great time with my family, I got an opportunity to eat way too much, as we tend to do on that day, watch plenty of football, which is my second favorite thing to do. My first favorite thing to do, of course, is to watch the parade in the morning. I was happy to see that my high school marching band was featured. If you watched the Trumbull High School marching band from Trumbull, Connecticut, I was actually not only a student of that high school, but I was a member of that marching band, the Golden Eagle Marching Band. And so I was absolutely a band geek growing up. And although I did not get to march in the Macy's Days Parade, they did that once when I was not a member, I was happy to see them out there. I know how much time it takes to prepare for that. And it's really kind of a special event when you get to go to the Macy's Day Parade, because you have to hit the marks at certain times and there's a whole show that you put on. So anyway, it was really nice to catch them and see a little bit of nostalgia on the screen. Anyway, I love the parade. And then I go right into about half an hour of the dog show before I have to switch over to football. But I was joined by a bunch of my family members, and I happened to have a lot of them as clients, managing their money for them. But a few of them showed up that were not clients of mine, which is okay. But they always like to pepper me with questions. And one of the questions came up, so, I got about $60,000. I don't want to invest it in the market. What's something good I can do? What's something good in the short term? So I thought, you know what? That actually makes for a great podcast episode, a radio show episode. So we're going to cover today 6 fantastic short-term investments. And so I'm going to give you 6 things that you can do with your money in the short term. We're going to discuss the pros and cons of that, what's going to be risks that are involved. We're going to try to keep them as risk-free as possible. May not be completely possible in all of those cases, but I will talk to you a little bit about what you can do with that money. So now's the opportunity to grab a pen and pad so that you can kind of follow along with us. And then the other thing that we're going to do is, I take that opportunity when somebody asks me a question to ask questions back. And so I find that there are probably about 7 things that people are missing in their retirement plan. And I take a little devious tactic of asking all of these questions and a small delight in knowing that most of these people don't have it done. And at least I enjoy letting them know that it's not done so that they can figure out what to do going forward. Maybe it's with me, maybe it's with somebody else, but we're gonna go over 7 common holes in your retirement plan. So we're going to do 6s and 7s for this show, and we'll try to cover all of them as thoroughly as possible in the 30 minutes that we have here today. So let's jump right in to the 6 best short-term investments. And so, one of the things that I find from time to time is that, people have unrealistic expectations for what's possible in terms of investing in the short term. They don't like seeing money sit there dormant, but at the same time, they believe that there is something that can be done. And often the answer is there is something that can be done with that money, but you're not going to get rich off of it, and it's not going to be the kind of rewarding event, as if you had hit the lotto or made a great bet at the casino or something like that. There's just doesn't work that way. But we do actually have a few things that we can recommend as great short-term investments. And so again, I'm trying to get you to temper your enthusiasm for how much you're going to make, especially as you see this stock market continue to rise. It's crazy out there. Interest rates are low again. So it's sort of it's a weird place to be, because you see a lot of people making money around you. But these are people that were invested in the stock market before the rise began in 2009, at least the people that are doing that. So we don't want to jump in and out of investing like that. But we do have a few things that we would put in the category of, I guess, investments, things that you can make money on. But we're going to try to keep them risk-free. They really are about the short term. So one of the first things you can do is take a look at an online savings account. Now, if you want to guarantee that your money's not going to go anywhere while generating a little bit of return, there are online high-yield savings accounts that fit well into that. As long as you keep the principal below $250,000, you'll be covered by FDIC insurance. Now, there are a number of rules to that. There's different FDIC insurance that applies whether you are owning it jointly with another person, whether it's an IRA account versus an individual account, and these are across each of the institutions. So you can have $250,000 of coverage at each of the high yield online savings accounts. But the idea is, you can just deposit your money and walk away knowing that it will be there when you're ready to cash out. So it's a great short-term investment in terms of security. And there's a small amount of interest rates that will be paid out on that. Now, interest rates are very low. And because they're low, it means that you won't earn a lot of interest in the short time that you'll have the money there. I would say that based on the interest rates, you are not keeping pace with inflation, right? So what they're paying out doesn't even match what the increased cost of goods are over time, but this is risk-free, and you'll never have to lose any sleep over that. The other good thing about it is that there's an incredible amount of liquidity in the online savings accounts. So essentially, when you invest in that, you can take the money right back out with no penalty. And most of them will allow a certain number of withdrawals over the course of a month. So you can't use it really like a checking account, but they'll permit you to take, maybe even up to 6 withdrawals every month, which is a lot, I think. You can transfer over into the checking, but basically you can cash out your funds whenever you want. And that's a great way to kind of think about using this fund is just it kind of immediately accessible, I guess. So, what you're going to miss out on is, of course, high returns. It's just not going to be possible with that. You're going to be trading off for a smaller amount of return for this liquidity, but an online savings account is a good place to go. Now, the next level of that is to think about certificates of deposits, or CDs. Now, CDs are basically deposits with banks. And they can have various lengths. You can go 3, 6 months, a year, 5 years. And depending on how long your investment horizon is, you can select which term will work best for you. Paying slightly more than the online savings accounts. Again, you'll have great security over that. But what you trade off is a penalty for liquidity. So if you need to bring your money out sooner than the maturity of that CD, you typically have to pay a penalty. You won't lose all of the interest, but you may lose anywhere between 3 months to 50% off of what you've made off of that. And so that's definitely something to consider, because I would look at CD as more of I wouldn't say a long-term investment, but a mid-term investment for your money. And then finally, before we take a break, within the bank world, you might think about a money market account. Now, a money market account is basically an investment that's equivalent to CDs in terms of their yield. Many times the money market accounts have a lot of the bells and whistles of a savings account or a checking account. You can get at ATM, checks and deposit slips. Basically, the amount that you get is not based on the length of term. I mean, obviously, the longer you hold it there, the more money you'll get, but it's really based on the amount of money that you have, not putting it in for 5 years or something like that. And again, you have increased liquidity. Is there a slight risk with the money market account? Theoretically, the answer is yes, but most people don't lose any money ever with a money market account. They're typically very, very secure. So those are the first 3, right? Online savings accounts, CDs, and money market accounts. And I think a lot of people know those. When we come back from the break, I'm going to share with you 3 more ideas on short-term investments and things that you can do with your money, and maybe you haven't considered these. So let's go get to a break, and when we come back, we'll go with the 3 next best short-term investments. We'll be right back.
As you get older, there are so many decisions to make around your legal, financial, and tax planning needs. Searching for the right people who you can trust and getting them all on the same page can be frustrating and exhausting. Turns out, now there's a better way. Medina Law Group is the only place where you can secure your total wealth with a one-stop shop for your estate, retirement, and tax planning needs. With over 15 years of experience and more financial credentials than you can shake a stick at, Victor Medina and his team offer a way to cover all of your planning needs under one roof. Whether you're concerned about getting your ducks in a row or securing your nest egg or both, Medina Law Group can give you the peace of mind you deserve to make sure you have all the angles covered with best-in-class planning. Call the experienced professionals at Medina Law Group at 609-818-0068 to learn more, including your chance to schedule a free consultation. You can also visit MedinaLawGroup.com to learn more about protecting your assets and the Medina Law Group team. For peace of mind and a solid foundation, contact Medina Law Group today.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We are talking about the 6 best short-term investments that we can do with their money. I told you a little bit about my Thanksgiving and people trying to pick my brain on what to do with this money. And so first 3 we went over were an online savings account, CDs, and money markets. Now I've got 3 other ideas for you, and one of them I think might surprise you, but one of the things you can do is I'll save that one for last. But one of them you can do is you can do a short-term bond fund. Now, this is kind of an interesting concept. We include these in the portfolios that we have, and so I'll have all of the disclaimer about no guarantees about a return on any of these securities, so that we stay on the right side of the ethics stuff with it. But the idea behind a short-term bond fund is usually it's a form of a product, typically a mutual fund that is managed by a professional money manager. And the idea on it is that it's meant to return money in the short term. So one of the ones that we used is got a kind of like a sub name to it, like a 1 or 2 year real return, with the idea that it's really been designed to optimize returns just in the first couple of years, and it's a short-term investment. Now, all of the caveats come along with this type of a mutual fund. The actual value of the fund could go up or down. The amount that it pays out is not guaranteed. But because bonds do offer payout on debt, that's basically what the bond is, you can get a higher yield than in a money market or a savings account because you've sort of flipped around the investment, right? Instead of giving people money that they can lend out, and you get the smaller percentage because they have to lend it out at a higher rate than they pay you, right? That would be a deposit. You are on the lending side where you are receiving the interest, and so you're getting a slightly higher yield. And it's going to pay out stuff on a fluctuating basis based on interest rates, the bonds that are purchased, things like that. But there is an opportunity to get some money back, on a 1 or 2 year basis, if you're willing to take a little bit more risk on that the actual value of the bond itself will decrease, as interest rates change, because that is a choice. That's a chance. So anyway, then the next one, so number 5 off of that, are Treasury inflation protected securities, or what we call TIPS. So what these are government bonds, and they are indexed to inflation. The interest rate that these TIPS pay is fixed, but the underlying value of it rises with inflation, basically measured on CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. So let's illustrate this as on a hypothetical. You might only get like a 0.5% in interest paid twice a year, right? Because bonds pay twice a year, every 6 months. But over the course of the 5 years, the value of the bond might increase 2.5% per year because inflation is increasing. And so at the end of that period, the end result is that your initial investment will be worth as much as when you first invested it, in terms of it's protected against inflation. So the dollar amount is higher. Does this make sense? It makes the dollar amounts higher, but because it's been indexed for inflation, your purchasing power remains equal as what you had 5 years ago, plus the interest that you've made. So you can always buy TIPS directly from the government at treasurydirect.gov, I think it is. But because the interest is taxable, most investors prefer to invest in a TIPS ETF or a mutual fund, basically a collection of those. And then if you hold them long enough, the actual increase in value will be capital gains, even though the interest that it pays out is ordinary income. So you might think about a 5-year TIPS purchase with some of this money if you don't need it within that 5-year period. And if you purchase the mutual fund, while it will increase in value, you'll get a little bit more liquidity than you will by actually owning the security. Now, the last one, it's kind of my most interesting one, last thing you can do is actually use that money as like a micro lending for cashback rewards on credit cards. So this is pretty interesting. The rewards that are available for sign-up bonuses are extremely lucrative. You have to have a certain amount of spending in a short period of time in order to earn them. But if you get 55,000 points and they're at about, kind of like 1% each, that might be worth, $550 worth of money immediately on your investment, as long as you hit the minimum amount. Sometimes it's $5,000 of spending within 3 months or $10,000 of spending, but you already have the bank. You've got the $65,000 sitting there, so you can pay off these credit cards immediately at the end of the month. And, basically be able to get that out. So let's illustrate this. There's one out there called the Chase Sapphire Preferred, and they've got a sign-up bonus of about 50,000 points. So that's worth $500 because it's about 1% of that if you spend $4,000 within the first 3 months. Now, they have an annual fee on that. It's $95, but it's waived for the first year, so you can earn this bonus without paying anything on it so far. And you're going to want to use this money spending on stuff that you already were spending on before. So groceries, gas, monthly bills, basically anything that you were going to pay with your other credit card, you do with the sign-up bonus, and then you pay it off immediately at the end of the month. And so you avoid any interest. And there are other ways that you can spend those $50,000 points. So you can use it as cash, right? So that's worth cash. But you could book up to $625 in air travel. And that's more than enough for a round trip flight. You can turn those $50,000 into gift cards. And that is essentially the cash. So you're going to want to take a look at that as a way to kind of have a short-term investment. And, after you've met the minimum spending requirements, you can go ahead and close out that card and try it again with a different card and re-earn those bonuses. So you can have this rotating one. Now, my favorite provider of advice for credit card reward stuff, I live vicariously through this guy, is somebody called the Points Guy. And so the Points Guy, he creates a website where he shows you how he's kind of utilizing his mileage points to travel and all this kind of crazy stuff. Now, understand the deal. You go to the website, he's got advertisers. The advertisers are the credit card companies. And so if you click through on the links, he gets a percentage of the amount of credit cards that he opens up or helps people open up. So, that's how he's making money and having all these credit cards to fly around and do crazy stuff. But he takes some awesome trips. So if you just want to take a look at how he visits the inside of lounges and all that crazy stuff, I totally recommend it. All right. So we have taken up the first 2 segments just on my 6 short-term investments. When we come back, I'm going to speed through the 7 common holes in your retirement plan. And we won't have a lot of time to spend on it. We're going to go a minute per hole, I guess, going in. But stick with us, because when we come back in the break, I do want to talk about the 7 common holes in your financial or retirement plan. So we'll be right back after this break.
Just about every working American stays focused on the ultimate goal, retirement. But planning for it can come with a lot of uncertainty. Do I have adequate savings? Have I invested enough? Have I invested too much? What's the right thing to do? If you're one of the millions of Americans asking these questions, let financial expert Victor Medina help you make sense of it all. Victor is a certified financial planner and retirement income specialist who can help you set the strategy with a unique planning process that centers on you. By taking an in-depth look at your retirement timeline, goals you want to achieve, and what you have saved, Victor and his staff can help you figure out how to get the most out of retirement. Retirement is the biggest financial decision you will make. Putting the right plan in place and sticking to it is the smartest decision anyone can ever make. To learn more, visit Private Client Capital Group online at privateclientcapitalgroup.com and start down the path of securing your total wealth today.
All right, welcome back. We have had a lot of fun today so far talking about 6 short-term investments to put your money, all a result of my Thanksgiving experience with having people bend my ear about what they should be doing with their money and their planning. And so I got to turn that around on them. They asked me for my advice on short-term investments because, nobody wants to wait to make any money. And then I got to turn around and say, what are you doing with your financial planning, your retirement planning, and be able to poke holes in that because most people have a plan with holes. So let's go through the 7 holes that we commonly see on them. And you can use this as a barometer in your own lives. Take a listen to these and write them down and see, if you had to grade these from A to F, where you would be, because what you really need in your life is all A's. This is a time to perform in school. You need all A's. And if you figure out that you don't have A's and A pluses in this area, you need to be working to correct that because you could have some good grades, be falling asleep in class to some of those other ones. So I'm going to be like that teacher and say, wake up and pay attention. So the first one for me, even for people that are in retirement, have to do with emergency savings. So you'd be shocked about how people have not planned for the use of their money in the short term for emergency savings, and you're going to want to be looking at anywhere between 3 to 6 months of available liquid cash resources. This number can climb in sort of financial planning theory when you are dual income, single income, still earning, if you've got kids, that type of stuff. So like for you in retirement, if you're listening to this, 3 to 6 months of cash available to meet your monthly expenses is a good idea, because again, you don't want to be coming out of the market in a particular need to raise cash. But if you have kids that are still working, grandkids that are starting out, they're going to want to look closer to 6 to 9 months of those expenses and have that as an emergency fund. Again, depending on whether or not there's a sole kind of wage earner, the breadwinner, or multiple on there, because one of them loses their job, the other person can earn money. But if there's only one person making money and that person loses their job or gets sick, then it kind of becomes a problem. So you do want to take a look at having that. And again, those short-term investments we talked about, the highly liquid ones, are probably good places for that to be. The next one after that is sort of what I call a straying asset allocation. And so I have often reviewed people's investment statements, kind of taking a look at what they're invested in. In fact, a recent client comes to mind where she had set up a particular allocation within her investments, but when we reviewed how she was actually invested, because these things perform different ways, it didn't match the allocation. She was too top heavy in one area and not enough in another area for good diversification. There were other issues about not actually being diversified, which is a whole other discussion. But this sort of straying asset allocation problem really comes about because too many people take to heart the set it and forget it passive investment style. Yes, it's nice not to be actively managing it, but a diversified portfolio really is a balanced portfolio. And so what you want to make sure is that you have the right percentages of the things that you need to own. So you could have a hodgepodge of stuff that is just kind of been randomly selected, but we didn't keep things on that path, if that was the idea. Or if it's too much of a hodgepodge, it's not really smartly done. You gotta have to make sure that you get that diversification. Couple of ways you can kind of cure that problem. You can get halfway there by thinking about a target date fund. And this is less effective for people in retirement because that target date fund tends to be, in my opinion, improperly weighted towards fixed income and bonds. But if you look at a target date that might be 15 or 20 years down the road, that's going to, the manager of that money is actually going to keep the allocation accurate for where you need to be on your course of retirement. So that's kind of like a good safety net to catch. It's not really what I would consider to be best diversification, but you can do that. And you're gonna have to watch out, because I actually took a look for a client on 2 different, like we were helping them manage their 403b, and then we were managing other stuff for them. But when we looked at the allocations that were available inside of that, what you found was there were 2 target date funds with exactly the same date on maturity. It's like out in 2050 or 2055. But the expense ratios were completely different. One was over 1%, 1.5%. The other was less than 0.08. Okay. And so same conceptual idea about what the fund manager is going to be doing, but hugely different fees, which gets me to the next retirement hole, which is paying too much in investment fees. And most people have no idea how much they're paying. I've had lots of shows on this in the past. Most people believe they're not paying anything for their investments, which I would challenge them. How do you think that company's got real estate and an office and pens that they want to give away to you and pay for dinner? I mean, they're making money somehow. So they only thought that it was the $30, maybe on their annual statement fee. But the hidden costs that are inside of mutual funds, expense ratios, trading costs, plus advisory fees usually adds up to a few percentage points per year. And that would be okay, I guess, if what they were paying for were higher returns than an average. But if you look at any of the evidence on this, you figure out really quickly that active management, you just can't beat the market. There are very discrete ways that you can edge out a slight advantage, but you're not going to crush it. Certainly not to the extent of 3% or more in fees per year. So you want to be taking a look at making sure that you are not paying high management or performance fees. And one of the things that you can do is go to Morningstar and kind of put in things like mutual funds to try to figure that out. And then there was a recent a report, I guess, that was put together by a company that wants to sell you robo-advising. I don't really believe in that portion of it. But if you go, I think, to Personal Capital and you look at their advisor fee report, you're going to get a good sense of kind of what the largest organizations are doing with their fees. The ones with the big logos and taking out all the advertisement during football time. Okay, so next after that is it's holding on to too much company stock. So what I've seen a lot is that people will receive money in the form of stock for a company they worked on for 30 or 40 years, and they'll have a big belief in that company because, of course, that company kept them employed for all of that time. But when you actually take a look at it, you see that's way too weighted in that area. You've got too much weighting in that. And, it's one of the most dangerous investment moves that you can make, because if anything was going to happen to the employer, you not only might lose your job if you're still working, but a good percentage of your next nest egg at the same time. And Make It Last is all about ensuring your nest egg lives around as long as you are. So one of the things that you want to do is kind of probably cap that at 10 to 15%, even if you're still working on that. Yes, you're going to have to pay taxes, but I liken that to having gone to the casino and you've got a big pile of chips there. They want to keep some of those chips for you to take them off the table, but there's a risk that they'll take them all away from you if you keep betting with them. So we'll let them take a few of those chips so that we can take the rest off the table and cash them in. So we do want to make sure that we're getting out of highly concentrated positions in company stock. And then three more really quickly. One is a lack of estate planning. If you just have a will and a power of attorney and you haven't revisited in the last 5 to 10 years, that's a problem. It's a problem because things could have fallen out of alignment. And it's a problem because if those are the only three documents, you don't have a comprehensive estate plan. You just paid for a bunch of paper where they kind of replaced your name at the top and your kids' names in the middle. And what you really need is a comprehensive plan, with somebody that focuses on comprehensive planning. And then related to that is a failure to consider long-term care expenses, not just in terms of buying insurance for long-term care, which is one step, but also thinking about what would happen to you as you get older. If somebody gets sick and has to go to the nursing home, beyond the long-term care insurance policy, like what risk of that is to your personal home? What risk of that is to your other assets? How does it affect the quality of life of the healthy spouse, especially if you start to lose some of that money being paid out to the nursing home in terms of income? So you kind of want to take a look at that. And then finally, kind of not only making a retirement calculation, but revisiting it on a regular basis. Retirement planning is a dynamic concept. The planning is about making changes and not just kind of a set it and forget it and never look at it again. I mean, it's part of the reason why you would hire an advisor to help you with retirement planning, so that you had somebody else who's a professional looking at this, with you on a regular basis. So those are the 7 things. Let's go real quick. Emergency savings, straying asset allocation, high investment fees, too much company stock, not having good estate planning, failure to do long-term care planning, and the retirement calculation. And those are the 7. And I am out of time for today. I want to thank you for joining me. It would Make It Last. We're here every Saturday putting out the best show that we can to help you with retirement planning, both on the legal and the financial side. If you like what you hear, please share this with a friend. Let them know that it's something that you listen to that you get a lot of value from. And if it's something that you do like and you want other people to like it, one of the best things that you can do is go onto iTunes and give it a high rating and let other people know about it, because then Apple will promote it to other folks. Hey, you might want to listen to this too. So this has been Make It Last. This Saturday, we will join you every Saturday. Make It Last, helping you keep your legal ducks in a row and your financial nest egg secure. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
The foregoing content reflects the opinions of Medina Law Group, LLC, and Private Client Capital Group, LLC, and is subject to change at any time without notice. Content provided herein is for informational purposes only and should not be used or construed as investment or legal advice or a recommendation regarding the purchase or sale of any security or to follow any legal strategy. There is no guarantee that the strategies, statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. All investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There's no guarantee that any investment plan or strategy will be successful. We recommend that you consult with a professional dedicated to your needs.